So I'm Kenneth Fu, and today I'll be talking to you guys about what Figma is and what makes it so successful in the world of design and UI and UX. Next slide. Okay, so UI and UX is essentially user interface and experience, it refers to the aesthetic elements by which people interact with the product. And UX is more about the experience of a user um, that he has when he's interacting with a product or a service. So in the world of design, the comfort is a luxury designers rarely have. The nature of their game demands them to constantly be alert, to constantly evolve their chops and craft. New clients often mean new solutions and a set of new challenges. In such a dynamic scene, it's safe to say that sometimes the only things that let designers get back in their comfort zones are their trusty design tools. And it would make perfect sense. Graphic design is a fine mixture of creating art and crafting commercially applicable visual content that sends a message and tells a story. A profession like this demands that they are comfortable with their tools and know every pro and con of each tool. Fortunately, in the design realm, there's an abundance of tools for designers to use. They're constantly evolving, updating, adding new features, and simply becoming better. And ultimately, there comes a time when designers must leave their comfort zones behind and venture into a new path. So, less dramatically put, there comes a time when they opt for a new design tool to keep up with the demands they're getting. That being said, in this mini-series article, we're going to dive into headfirst into the world of Figma, which is one of the most prominent editing tools for designers out there, which aims to give Figma beginners the anchor they're looking to get started. So, what are vector-based design tools? So, softwares such as Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision Studio are all vector-based user interface and user experience, so UI and UX design tools, and there are three of the biggest ones in the world, and some of you might have heard of them if you are into designing. And they're used to create prototypes of web and mobile applications. Before these solutions were available in the market, Sketch was previously known as the industry standard, along with other popular software products such as Azure, UXPin, and Framer. So, as you can see, there's a multitude of UI and UX design tools available for purchase. So, I'll be looking into three of the biggest ones, Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision Studio, and give you a rundown of how they are run and why they are so successful in their business. So these specific tools were chosen not only due to the rising popularity in the design industry, but because they're all free, removing price walls for designers who should otherwise be unable to afford an expensive design software. So new people going to design like us, um, I'd highly recommend these tools and give you also a rundown of why you could use it and how you could use this in your life. So um, who would use these apps? So common UI and UX designers can often be broken down into three categories: students, professionals, and freelancers. So students, like most of us here, are design and a lot of them are design and human-computer interaction. They focus on that, and it's become a popular undergraduate degree for many students, which increases the commonality of sophisticated design tools as a required class material. So since Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision Studios are all free tools, they often offer special incentives for students. For professionals are usually identified as paid UI and UX designers who are not required to pay for the application, as their employers often provide licenses for these design software programs. And finally, freelancers are contracted individuals with no employer affiliation that purchase and use UI UX tools for simple employment opportunities. So these three main categories um, are the ones who most commonly use UI design tools, UI and UX design tools, and these design tools allow users to create and animate interface designs for test users to interact as if they were a real website. And designers can create different artboards that represent screens and buttons, which are then linked to other artboards without coding. So you can do this without any prior knowledge of programming or anything. And this is a very unique way and really allows designers to be able to test the usability and effectiveness of their designs. So next slide. So as aforementioned, the three leaders in UI and UX design are Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision Studio. So Figma, we'll start with Figma. It's a software created by Dylan Field and Evan Wallace, released in 2016. And it is primarily a web-based vector graphics editor and prototyping tool. And the application offers online features as well as desktop applications for Mac OS and Windows. The software was created with an emphasis on UI and UX real-time designer collaboration, and Figma offers three packages for users: Starter, Professional, and Organization. And I'll go more in depth about the features of Figma later. Adobe Inc. released Adobe XD in 2016, same year as Figma, and it's similarly also a vector design tool available for macOS and Windows. The software offers three plans: a free starter pack, access only to XD, and access to the entire Adobe Creative Suite, which contains 20 plus applications. So some of the pros of Adobe XD include um, like video recording or prototype use. So on Adobe XD, designers can screen record and share themselves interacting with their design. This allows users to and developers to see how the prototype would be used from the perspective of a user and helping discern the design's efficiency. It also has repeat grade. So on many design tool platforms, users must copy paste or control D objects for duplications. After pasting, these items still require adjustment. However, on Adobe XD, there's a grid feature which allows users to select a desired group and adjust the grid as necessary, which saves a lot of time and effort. And the Adobe Creative Suite integration, which integrates with 20 plus other applications provided by Adobe, allows designers who use other apps like Photoshop or Illustrator to seamlessly copy and paste assets into XD without any loss of quality or anything. But some of the cons of Adobe XD include not having CSS export. So for people who do programming, while users can view a designed CSS code, Adobe XD provides no export feature, so you can't actually export the CSS code from the feature. And this is not very ideal for the design developer handoff, as um, the lack of a simple export option has been the subject of scrutiny for many users, and it's extremely inconvenient. And also viewing prototyping model limitations. So live views of prototypes are only available on Mac OS. So for a lot of smartphone users or Windows users, it makes user testing much harder to execute. And lastly, InVision Studio is a smaller one compared to the other two, but it's also another leader um, in this market, and it is a prototyping tool released in 2011, and it's hosted over 3 million users. Um, so this software features intuitive sharing capabilities and more design options that compete with Adobe XD, Figma, and other similar prototyping tools. So InVision Studio provides a free plan targeted at individuals and small teams, as well as pro and enterprise paid versions. So some of the pros of InVision Studio include there's intelligent image cropping. So this feature allows for image crop and resizing without masks, meaning that designers can view how changing the size of their images would be seen from a user perspective. And you can also view revision history. And this is quite a small thing, but it's actually extremely important in the world of design. So you can go back on previous versions of your project without having to worry about losing any progress you've made. And it's also incredibly important to compare like before and afters of um, different ideations. And lastly, there's also real-time commenting, which allows designers who own the document to add collaborators and view comments on different parts of the design. And this also provides a helpful feedback loop for designers in their creation process. But some of the cons involved in this is the lack of plugin support. So InVision Studio does not permit users to connect plugins. And plugins are essentially things you can add to your design that make everything much simpler and simplifies the process of design. And there's also limited free options. So for people getting into design, um, it's quite hard to use if you are not paying for it. Next slide. So yeah, in 2019, UX tools surveyed 3,149 designers across the world in order to gather data on popular UI design tools. So from this graph above, you can see that when asked which tools they use for interface design, almost 38% of the reported use Figma, and 38%, and that's around 1,200 respondents, and ranks second overall in use, and first out of all the free tool options. So as seen, UX tools named Sketch, Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision Studio, some of the ones I've mentioned just now, as the top 4 design applications of the market. And according to the survey, Figma is the second best tool for Mac, and best overall for window use. So, next slide, please. Okay, well, yeah. So here's a designer's toolkit, which is a survey conducted by UX Tools in 2020, which garnered over 4,000 respondents. And so these, as you can see from these little things like brainstorming, user flows, wireframing, and more, are all essential for a designer. And UX Tools conducted a survey, interviewing people about which ones would be the best in each important part of a designer's toolkit. And so from the images above, Figma dominates in 75% of the categories listed. And like for user flows, UI design, prototyping, handoff, design systems, and versioning, Figma is the top choice. And Figma is the most effective tool based on external evaluation and user satisfaction. And while preferences may vary based on designer, in looking at its features alone, Figma offers the most robust and differentiated options, while retaining the core design tool features. Additionally, Figma is the only UI and UX tool that offers real-time collaboration and an equivalent online web application that better facilitates group work and increases accessibility. Yeah, so here's a table that shows the similarities between all of them and the differences and what advantages some of them have over the others. So as you can see, Adobe XD is an extremely strong competitor to Figma, and the two's interfaces are almost identical. So often the choice between the two is based on the designer's past experience with the software. Avid Adobe users tend to stay loyal to Adobe products due to file sharing abilities and easy access to different tools. So if you were someone who's used Photoshop or a lot of other Adobe apps before, then Adobe XD could be a good choice for you. Um, However, Figma is far more advanced than Adobe. So if you're a new designer who wants to get into this realm, I strongly suggest you to use Figma, as it's much more advanced in many aspects like collaboration abilities and the vast number of plugins, which I'll expand more on later. So despite the innovative software of InVision Studio, its latency in entering the market has served as a barrier in being a more widely used software. So Adobe XD and Figma released about 2 years prior to InVision Studio, and thus by the time it was released, many designers had already developed their preferences. And according to the 2018 Design Tool Survey, with a sample of 2,800 people, users prefer Figma over InVision, and from the surveys we've seen just now, Figma is also still largely preferred over InVision, and even Adobe XD. So, users who attempt to use InVision lack note the lack of key features that are otherwise available on different platforms. So while InVision does have commenting capabilities, the feature isn't as impressive or intuitive as Figma's Google Doc-esque collaboration capabilities, and work completed in InVision Studio must be uploaded to the InVision app in order to use the collaboration and feedback features. Additionally, InVision Studios has been criticized for the lack of visual overview given for tools, so users must navigate through a list of the names of each design tool, making usage cumbersome and unnecessarily confusing. Overall, Figma earns its title as the best free tool for designing an effective software through its intuitive layout and unique features, as we can see here. So what effect does this have on art enterprises? So UI and UX design tools have disrupted the art enterprise field because they redefined the designer-developer relationship. Prior to these tools, designers would create stunning works with intricate details that would get lost in translation when handed over for developers to code. The creation of these tools allowed everything developers needed to be stored in one place. Design tools such as Figma, Adobe XD, and Vision Studio help facilitate user testing. And with programs like these, designers can send test users links to their design, reflecting the website or app's public view, while still under construction. This feature allows test users to offer specific and more accurate feedback about the user's experience to designers. While these design tools disrupt the artistic industry as a whole, each individual software offers its own unique disruption. So, like Figma achieves this through the collaboration abilities I've talked about before. And before this feature was released, really no other platform had offered this. And this really made Figma a game changer in this industry. And like Adobe XD, for example, offers both designing and prototyping capabilities without any use of plugins, although they do support plugins, which definitely helps. And so, like prior to Adobe XD, Sketch was the standard tool, which required a plugin to prototype. So, so beginners who don't know how to use plugins can still use Adobe XD and prototype, just as well. And InVision Studios was unique due to its compatibility with Sketch, and was the first program that allowed users to upload and edit their old Sketch files. So if any of you guys here have used Sketch, you can upload that straight to InVision Studio without any loss. So Figma, Adobe XD, and InVision allow designers the opportunity to create new and more intuitive web experiences. Each software created innovative ways for designers to explore and implement more effective web and mobile applications through the facilitation and collaboration between users, designers, and developers. Though there have been disruption in the artistic industry, it is in a positive light. And looking to the future, as the field becomes more innovative and sees more change, it is likely that new features such as live code will be in new applications introduced in the market. Regardless, UI and UX design has become more user-friendly and intuitive than it has ever become. Okay. So now I'll be getting more into Figma and what exactly Figma is. So in the next slide, I have a video here, but I'm not sure if it can be played.
I clicked on it and it says access denied.
Yeah, wait. Okay, wait, let me give you access to it. And it's like the video has sound. It's mostly talking, so I think you'll have to share computer sound if you have any.
Give me a moment.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just a quick 1-minute video about what Figma is, it was uploaded by Figma themselves, and it's just a quick introductory into the overview of Figma.
Can you guys hear the audio?
I don't think I can.
Okay, I'll just play out.
Looks. It makes people feel. It makes people act. It makes a good product great. But for all the good design out there, the design process is often a mess. Files are passed back and forth, endless final versions are saved, and nobody ever has the right fonts. At Figma, we thought the design process needed a redesign, and so that's what we did. Figma is a platform where teams design together. It unites everyone in your creative process. Bring that idea to life in a design, wireframe, or prototype. Figma does it all in the cloud. Let your writer do their word magic right in your design file. Figma lets you both get on the same page, literally. Partner with your developer early and often, even if they live on the other side of the globe. Figma makes handoff more like a handshake. Invite your stakeholders to give feedback and note comments right in your work. Figma helps you get what you need and helps others get what they need. And all of this you can do together in real time without stepping on each other's toes. It's time to design on your terms with Figma.
Yeah, okay. So that was just a quick summary, and just to go over it again, on the next slide, Figma is it's essentially a web-based graphic and editing and user interface design app. So you can use it to do all kinds of graphic design work, from wireframing websites, designing mobile app interfaces, prototyping designs, crafting social media posts, and more. So if you have any of these interests, um, Figma is perfect for you, and it was specially designed for this. Um, so Figma is different from other graphic editing tools mainly because it works directly on your browser, and this means you get access to your projects and can start designing from any computer or platform without having to buy multiple licenses or install softwares. So if any of you have used Sketch before, it's quite similar in terms of functionality and features, but with some big differences that make Figma much better for team collaboration. So yeah, so as you can see here, these are some sample projects from Figma, and as you become more familiar with Figma, you can design some of these yourselves, and there are also tutorials online teaching you how to make these. And um, Figma has a very beginner-friendly editor where you can create designs from scratch or using pre-made templates. And as you become more familiar with features and techniques on Figma, um, a lot of graphic designers um, use a huge array of plugins to facilitate their work, and which will also make everything much easier. Even creating vectors, which is often difficult in other such tools, seems easy here, and allows you to create not only pages and interfaces, but also animations thanks to the Smart Animate plugin. Figma, although the application is relatively new, already has quite a large group of users, and thus there are a lot of courses and tutorials on the internet. Okay, so why Figma? What makes it so much better? As quoted from a lot of the users, some users, individual designers can set up their own public-facing profile page to show off their designs, as well as intra-organization profile pages, so other team members within their team can learn from each other. So this really encapsulates what makes Figma so much better than other ones. If we go to the next slide, Figma is extremely proud of its collaborative environment. And the idea of teamwork and collaboration is among the most popular trends in the entire IT industry, and UI and UX design is no exception. So Figma follows this trend perfectly, and its inherent cloud nature makes it simple and pleasant. The application allows multiple team members to work on a single project in real time, similar to the way Google Docs works. Another collaborative feature of Figma is commenting. So similar to Google Docs, you can simply leave a comment right in the file, and your team can discuss a project remotely with no need to set up Skype calls or face-to-face meetings. The always online nature of Figma actually provides some of the greatest strengths of the tool. One of those strengths is that Figma allows for live, real-time collaboration, and so you and your teammates can all log in to design at once, simultaneously making changes to it. And the fact that these designs are always saved online means that you never have to worry about your team members falling out of sync with the project. And the latest changes are always right there in the file, so you don't have to worry about transferring files between team members or pushing files to and from any third-party storage platform. This also means that you can jump into design and at the same time as a client. So even if you're in a separate location from your client, you can have a sit-down meeting where you're both looking at the same thing. The client can make suggestions and you can implement it right there and then. Anyone can quickly share a project board, prototype, or mockup with a simple Figma link. and you can immediately share a link in order to collaborate with developers, clients, and other team members. In the past, designers would have to export drafts of a design minutes before a meeting to ensure all the latest changes are incorporated. With Figma, designers can change elements on the fly, and the comment feature can be done anytime and anywhere. And another big part of Figma is the observation mode, which is another tool many designers use to collaborate with their clients or peers. So if you guys are looking to like work with anyone else on the project, the observation mode will come really helpful during a meeting or when you're deciding how to make the project look or design look. So clients and team members are able to watch the designer's cursor as they work on the projects in real time using the observation mode. So you can see exactly every move they're making. So you know and you can plan together what exactly you'll be doing next. And this was extremely helpful for design critiquing, so you can give a live demonstration to stakeholders and team members for the project you're working on in real time. And you can also observe other users as they flow through prototypes and go over each part of the project. And users will also be able to use their own equipment, and we gain better insight into the experience early on in the design process. So this is especially helpful in the pandemic because face-to-face meetings were much harder to arrange. So observation mode online really helped users be able to collaborate like they were together in person. And additionally, observing in Figma can help offset some of the Zoom fatigue of virtual meetings and presentations or other platforms. So another upside to Figma is the design and simplicity of the many features of the software. So firstly, the integration and migration of Figma has been designed to suit the client and maximize efficiency for users. If you're a graphic designer who has done previous projects on other softwares such as Figma has made it possible to import all of your previous projects into the new applications without many losses. And the transition is almost seamless and efficient, so there will be no drooping curves or no bad images. And Figma is also extremely important and compatible with many other apps to help your designing process. So for better collaboration, you can integrate Figma with one of the most popular teamwork applications on the market, Slack, and other apps such as Framer and more are also extremely popular to pair together with Figma. And code-based prototyping is also gaining popularity with a new generation of designers, and the latest integration simplifies workflows by letting users to one-click import any Figma assets without exporting it layer by layer. So the design system created also helps boost productivity and collaboration between users. Together, these design systems are stored in cloud-based libraries. For example, Figma allows designers to create styles for fonts, colors, grids, and other presets that anyone can apply to their designs. So if you really liked a color scheme or a type of grid that you wanted to use throughout your design, one click is all you need to add this throughout all your projects. So you can build up these libraries of reusable components, which the whole team has access to. And components give designers a head start in any existing design systems. And when a component is updated in the central library, those changes are made across all designs for everyone. And as components are designed, they're stored in the library that team members can easily search and drag into their own file. Yeah, and the functionality is also a big upside to Figma, and it's extremely convenient for users and designers to use and implement. So personally, I do a lot of programming in my own time, and I'm sure some others here do too, or at least interested in programming. So Figma has a clever system where you can combine both your knowledge for programming together with UI, where Figma can generate SVG code, CSS, and iOS and Android code. So for any website developers out there, you can just directly copy the code directly from an object within Figma, and conversely, it also works vice versa. So you can implement this into real website design, or you can translate it in any way you want. Figma also has extremely flexible graphic formats. So often, page design tools do not allow you to create a graphic or shapeform from scratch on your own. And you'd have to use Photoshop to carefully craft a lot of the images. But Figma, on the other hand, allows you to create vectors. And This may seem like a small thing, but it really saves a lot of time, and you don't have to edit through every single photo in order to be able to upload it. And rearranging objects is also much simpler and more intuitive thanks to tidy up functions in Figma, which among other things allows you to group elements and organize the layouts of text and graphics. So a lot of the aesthetics range of the product can be easily fixed or enhanced with this function. And there's also many other functions like the pages functionality and many more which really enhance the functionality of Figma. And Figma also conveniently allows users to add add-ons and plugins to their projects. So Figma has developer APIs to allow true integration with any browser-based apps. So companies are always using this to integrate real-time display of design files in their apps. For example, big companies like Uber has large screen displaying design files live on air around the company, and designs are always shared, and feedback is always welcome from um, anyone in the room. So other big companies like Atlassian's JIRA software has implemented a Figma add-on, so product owners, developers, and quality engineers are always viewing the latest versions of any mockup from the designers. Additionally, Figma's API promises to fulfill customer requests for third-party plugins and future enhancements that Sketch already provides. Yeah, so we've seen that Figma is used in a lot of big companies around the world, but one of the most prominent sides of Figma is its use in education. So, and this is prominently used between teachers and also students. So for educators, it really enhances and enables a virtual classroom. So especially during the time of the pandemic and during the time of online lessons, um, educators were also able to adapt and accommodate the combination of in-person and remote work, real-time and asynchronous collaboration, and Figma makes it so easy so that anyone can participate at any time. And it also creates a single source of truth for class materials. So by aggregating all work in Figma, it's easy to keep track of conversations and assignments. So for example, instructors Steph Cotula and Ryan Long of Portland State University used one Figma file with multiple pages as a space for all lectures, design activities, and critiques. It serves as an artifact, allowing students to reference class materials or catch up on missed lessons without having to go anywhere else. It also creates a more engaged and inclusive classroom. So the magic of Figma happens when there's more than one person in a file, and the ideas start to flow, allowing teams to riff, iterate, and build upon each other's works. So in many classrooms, new dynamics emerge and social norms change. A lot of more quiet students begin to participate more actively, and um, it really levels the playing field and creates channels to allow more active participation in varying formats, opening doors for more collaboration. Lastly, it also creates a space for community for the classroom, and particularly in this time of hybrid and remote and in-person learning, it fosters a sense of togetherness. Julian Burke, who teaches a course on the foundations of UX and UI, has her students create a yearbook in Figma, and students in each cohort post headshots, leaving encouraging comments and add stickers to each other's pages. So this really created a sense of togetherness amongst different communities. For students, it can also develop career building competencies. So students studying design today need to close the gap between what they learn in class and the skills they'll need one day in their jobs. So Figma really helps students do just that. Firstly, it gives them exposure to relevant tools and practical skills. So the design process has shifted from a linear model to one that's much more collaborative and cross-functional. So modeling this way of working in Figma in the classroom allows students to get more comfortable opening up their own processes and introducing them to social dynamics and workflows that will serve them well in the workspace. It also opens opportunities to develop portfolios. So every design interview contains a portfolio review, a chance for candidates to show not just their final result, but also the process of how they got there. And with Figma, students can keep track of their many iterations, research, and process along the way. It also provides connections to the community. So every designer knows and they credit a lot of their progress to learning from other designers. So joining many other groups like Friends of Figma student groups, or programs like Figma's hackathon program, or learning from others by duplicating and remixing files in the Figma community are all meaningful ways of coming together and learning more for both yourself and also for others. So yeah, and with that being said, there are also some downsides in Figma to look out for. So currently, Figma is mostly only available online, and the offline functionality is quite limited. So it basically requires Wi-Fi to access most of its features. So you won't be able to create new files, open current ones, or view revision history without having a Wi-Fi connection. And there's also a little bit of navigation difficulty. So but this is more applied to advanced users, so this shouldn't apply too much for new users. Yeah. So how exactly does Figma work? Design systems are crucial to UI and UX design. So design system is essentially a living style that's collaborative and code connected. And it's not just a style guide where designers are the only contributors. It's shared across the whole team, including designers, developers, product managers, and more, as you get more advanced. So as a result, the design system should be cohesive, dynamic, reusable, and maintainable, both in design and code. It starts with the style and components in Figma, then move its way to the team library to finally become code components that exist in a place that's easy to reference, contribute, and version control, like a Git repository. I'll be guiding you. I'll be guiding you through the design systems in Figma and showing you how these design systems from scratch work with, like, as you can see here, with many types of typography, icons, and more, which can be used to achieve powerful, lasting results. So here in the anatomy of a design system, these are all the things composed of. These are all the elements composed in your final app. So these elements should be cleanly organized into styles and components that are referenced in a single source of truth inside a separate document. So this document should be easy to maintain and be by anyone in your team. So if your developers are involved in Figma, you can share your design system file as a web URL. And if you build a site as well, you can use live embeds to reflect all the changes perfectly to your site. And one thing you guys can do more research on in your own time is Zendesk Guardian, which has brilliant design systems that you guys can look through for inspiration if you're ever looking to design any one of these. So the foundation of a design system sets the tone of your design language, and it's important to formulate the context for the branding and clearly indicate how your logo should be used appropriately. Also, you should set the main colors, typography, and grids here. So file structure. This is another really important part. That's really the basic of Figma. So there are 4 levels to this: teams, projects, files, and pages. So when you first log onto Figma, teams are immediately the first thing you need to create, and it contains a list of projects that are created by the team members. You can both create a new team and invite members by choice, or you can join a project that's already created by other users. This allows for easy collaboration from the start between different users and teams, and you can also delegate different tasks or projects to different teams. And projects are within the team sections, so you can delegate different projects to certain teams and also keep track of what every team is doing. And within projects, you can create files and pages, which essentially um, adds to the artistic boards and adds to the canvas of your project. So what exactly made Figma so successful and how did they get here? So if we look at many companies in this industry, companies are really a sequence of loops. So if we go to the next slide, you can see there are 3 stages that companies go through. So first, you go through the cloud first and tech side. Then you go to the enterprise sales and cross-site network effects. And lastly, you go into I don't think the GIF is working, but yeah. So there are essentially three sides to this, and yeah, it goes. And the last side is plugins and communities, but I don't think you can see that here. So so companies are all can be seen as a form of a sequencing loop. So while it's possible to stumble into an initial core loop that works, most companies are successful in the long term by ones that follow this similar type of loop. And this evolution is poorly understood relative to its existential impact on a company's trajectory. And Figma is a prime example of a sequence loop, and I'll dive more into this. So the core inside of Figma is that design is larger than just designers. Design is all of the conversations between designers and PMs about um, about what to build. It is the mocks and prototypes and the feedback on them. It is the handoff of specs and assets to engineers and how it is easy for them to implement them. So, building for this entire process doesn't take away the importance of designers. It gives them a seat at the table for the core decisions a company makes. Building from everyone in the design process, not just designers, is also the foundation of Figma's core loops, which drives their growth and compounding scale. That network effect is made possible by Figma's early key choices, like architecting Figma to be truly browser first, instead of just having storage to be in the cloud. Their head start in new technologies like WebGL, CRDTs that made this browser first approachable. And it also focuses on a product purpose built for those designing vector-based digital products. So the awkward collaboration here can be seen between cloud storage and browser first. And as you can see from the two diagrams, Figma is browser first based, and it's clearly much simpler than a cloud storage, which many other softwares use, such as Sketch and other ones. So when Figma first launched, its value proposition was primarily around making design collaborative. And if design could happen in the browser, then the designers could work together on the same projects. And as mentioned earlier, this is still one of their key features and what really makes them stand out from other design apps. So, um, because design teams saved all their files in a shared folder like Dropbox, every time a coworker made a revision, they'd get a notification. And often there were complex naming conventions to make sure people were using the right versions. So it became really complicated. And as you can see, storing files, retrieving files, and editing everything is extremely complicated. But Figma really solved all this. And by making it browser first, um, it's similar to how Google Doc works. You can edit everything on one browser, and things update live and fast. So the art of collaboration is much more modern and transparent for all the users. So Figma really focused on tools for design, not just designers. So while Figma was building better tools for designers, their browser-first approach had a much more radical and significant impact on non-designers. So we often forget that the purpose of the tools we use at work is not to increase our individual productivity, but it's to increase the entire team's productivity. So companies themselves often forget this too. Um, so the best tool for individuals may also be the best for the entire team, but it's the latter that matters, what's best for the entire team. And beyond some level of enhancing individual productivity, it's the team aspects that increasingly matter. So word processing is a good example of this. There used to be lots of experimentation and customization around individual features like typesetting. But once this was good enough, the focus had shifted towards collaboration. And for most cases, few care about typesetting today. Increasingly, our tools must understand and align with how we collaborate. And this was less important when collaboration was logistically difficult and prohibitively costly. But as collaboration becomes easier, its importance has risen, and people's work is less siloed, and the tools must reflect this. So, as you can see here, Figma really fixed this, and sharing designs with Figma is as easy as sending a link. And anyone can open it directly from their browser. And it's as easy going to a website because it's just a website. So once they have the link, non-designers will have the latest design, and PMs or designers will have instant access to everything. So next, the tightening of feedback. Sorry, the last slide. Um, tightening a feedback loop is incredibly important, and it really allowed closer collaboration between designers and non-designers. So, historically, there has been so much friction in the design process that design is brought in after most decisions have already been made. But this really limits a lot of the designers' creativity, and they can't really push for things they really want to do themselves. So Figma really solved this problem. As you can see here, you can do everything, the image, design, prototype, and specs, all on Figma without having to decide everything beforehand before making a prototype on InVision or some other software. So yeah, and then the next way, means of ascent. Much of Figma's current success is driven by its ability to spread within companies. So um, to succeed as a company, you can't just be appealing to certain users or a certain group of users. You have to be driven by the ability to spread within companies and go spread between companies as well. So Figma becomes more useful as more people within a company use it, which drives advantage speeds and scale of penetration within companies. So Figma was quick to recognize that the constraints on design in companies is often not a problem of pixels, but of people. Many of Figma's competitors are great tools for designers, but that's who they are for, designers. Figma is a tool for teams to design, and it's not just for designers, it's also for engineers and PMs, as you can see. So on the left-hand side, traditional design tools are just strictly for designers, and they're the only ones involved. But with Figma, everyone can get involved, and everyone can view and collaborate on the design together. And it's a virtuous circle and powerful compounding loop for everyone involved in the process. So cross-site network effects is an extremely important part of making a company or product good. So these effects often get less attention than direct network effects, partially because we don't really see it on the base layer of many products. And while it's true that cross-site networks effects are mostly seen in marketplaces, it's wrong to think that they only exist in marketplaces. So supply and demand is the most famous of cross-site network effects, but it's not the sole source. Figma's direct network effect among designers helped it grow early on, but has limits on its ability to help Figma spread. The set of designers that a designer works with directly is a limited set, and unlikely to change often. So on the left-hand side, you can see the director network effect. It really only spreads within designers and can't really spread very far. But with Figma's cross-site network effect, it offers an additional vector. So by using designers who use Figma share their designs with engineers and PMs, introducing them to Figma, and these non-designers learn to appreciate Figma and then go on to share with other teams of designers as they work on it with other projects. So this word of mouth and social referral to many other designers is extremely important and really helped Figma grow. So these impacts of monetization and purchasing at companies, paying for a new design tool because there's new features for designers may not be a top priority, but if product managers, engineers, or even CEOs really think it matters for the business as a whole, then it has much higher priority and pricing leverage and really helps spread among different users. So next, the product distribution fit of Figma is also what has really shaped the growth of Figma. So similar to planting seeds, Figma can start small with a scattering of individuals using it as each company, but each of them can lead to serious expansions throughout their companies. So once Figma is adopted by a few designers, all their colleagues across departments get exposed to the product, and especially its collaborative features, and see how much better the experience is for them. So they then can encourage its usage and adoption across their other teams and projects and so on. So this is what gives Figma the compounding growth rate it has. So while it has taken some time for Figma to truly ramp up its growth, it's now the core of Figma's products is the core of its distribution loop, as you can see here. So that's truly incredibly rare and powerful for a company like Figma. And the true alignment between product and core distribution loops is what's needed to catalyze outliability to compounding growth. So, like many of the peers and other companies, similar companies, Figma has developed a two-step sales motion, landing and expanding via bottom-up product-driven approach. Then doing top-down sales once usage of the product has met its so preparing for this entails a whole slew of enterprise features. This might sound really complicated, but truly it's just a simple sales loop that many others big companies use that really helps the product distribution fit really well, and it really combines product-driven consumption loops with enterprise sales. So yeah, this simple loop has really benefited and shaped a lot of Figma's growth.
Hey, Kenneth, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, we gotta wrap up a bit soon, so like it's fine
Okay,
if you
yeah,
can't
sure,
really
sure.
do everything. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay, I'll just go to the end then. So if we go to so I'll just go to the conclusion now. It's on the last slide. Yeah, so just a conclusion. Figma is a rapidly growing software in the market, and it's extremely easy to use. It has excellent application of plugins, which I didn't have time to go into yet, but for many of you who are interested in this, you can do more research on plugins and see how you can apply this for yourself. And it has a sustainable ecosystem and improves upon other competitors, such as Adobe XD and Sketch. So personally, I would highly recommend this software for any interested designers, and it's bound to become better over the years and will only improve. And
all right, thank you, Kenneth. Yeah, we'll leave a little bit of time for people to ask questions. So if you have any questions, just put them on the Teams chat, or you can unmute yourself by raising your hand firsthand, and we can call on you. Just like to quickly say thank you to Kenneth, especially because he's actually a sophomore in high school, meaning that he's probably younger than a lot of you. So it's pretty crazy that he knows so much about Figma and other softwares, and it shows that knowledge does not have an age boundary to it or an age parameter. So great job, Kenneth. I really appreciate it. If any of you guys decide to do Figma and need sort of help and just guidelines on it and you have questions, then you can always send them to us and we might be able to forward that to Kenneth for him to respond to those questions to help you guys out. So we really appreciate it again, Kenneth. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask now. We'll give you guys a bit of time, like 1 to 2 minutes. I think, Miriam, you can stop recording.
Kenneth, hello.
yeah. Well.